All right, Adam, thanks again. We just had some technical difficulties, so we're hitting record again here. Thanks again for jumping on the podcast here. Really appreciate it.
No, man, absolutely excited to be here and chat Bitcoin. It's always fun.
For sure, for sure. I'm looking forward to it. If you don't mind, kick things off quickly. If just introduce yourself and tell us what you're up to.
Yeah, I'm Adam OBrien. I'm the founder and CEO of Bitcoin Well, a company that I founded in 2013, kind of right after I found Bitcoin. And our journey's been pretty standard, I guess, for the space. Kind of like found Bitcoin in early 13 and dove right in, as everybody listening right now understands. Like the Bitcoin rabbit hole is deep, and once you
Yeah,
start, it is difficult to stop. And it's you learn about Bitcoin, but you find Bitcoin, you learn about politics, you learn about economics, you learn about the history of money, you learn about encryption, you learn about basic command line, you learn about all these valuable principles to life that we're not taught, and you just find yourself on this journey. And so found Bitcoin, raced down the rabbit hole, and then wanted to buy some Bitcoin. Found it difficult to do at the time. There were like very few online exchanges or very few opportunities to buy Bitcoin online. So at the end of the day, I was kind of faced with like meet a guy in a back alley or wire money to Russia to buy Bitcoin, and neither felt like awesome options. The back alley felt like the better of the two, um, but like, had about the experience you'd expect from buying Bitcoin from a guy in a back alley, and kind of thought, hey, I could do that better. I could teach people about Bitcoin. I'll be the guy in the back alley, and so
yeah,
I would meet people at like Starbucks or McDonald's or whatever. We'd have an ice cream and a coffee, and we'd chat about Bitcoin, and I'd share with them my knowledge, and they would ask me questions, I would answer, and then they would buy Bitcoin from me. Um, that turned into a Bitcoin ATM journey. So after the world's first Bitcoin ATM was deployed in Vancouver in fall of 2013, I was like, this is way better than meeting people. I could just put a machine in the Starbucks, and so, or whatever the coffee shop was. And so in February of 2014, we deployed Alberta's first Bitcoin ATM, and then Saskatchewan's first in May of 2014, and then built up a network of Bitcoin ATMs around Western Canada for the next few years. Um, Eventually expanded out east. We made a small acquisition in Ontario in 2019, and today we have over 240 Bitcoin ATMs across the country.
amazing.
Since then, we've also expanded kind of online into more of a like non-custodial online offering as well. So, really, really important to me that users have full control of their Bitcoin journey from start to finish. And right now,
Yeah,
like the overwhelming majority, dare I say, nearly all places that people buy Bitcoin online, they're doing it irresponsibly, and it's not safe. Buying Bitcoin through a custodian presents risks that the fiat system introduced, that the Bitcoin system, the Bitcoin standard erases. And so we've vowed to our customers, and I've made the commitment that we want to always make sure that customer security is like number one. And to do that, step one is making sure that it's a non-custodial product. Like when you go online, you can buy Bitcoin with Interac e-transfer. The money gets sent directly to your wallet within like a matter of minutes from when you send the e-transfer. So it's the
yeah.
fastest way. Like there's nothing faster on the market, and it's also by virtue of being non-custodial the safest way that you can buy Bitcoin online, which is great. I'm super proud of what we've built, and I'm excited to kind of continue building that up. So what we're
Yeah,
working on
that's
now is effectively an ecosystem of products that allows people to interact with Bitcoin however they choose. If it's buy, sell, or use Bitcoin, as broad as that is, creating a place so that they can feel safe and comfortable doing that with their self-custodied funds.
I love that. When did you launch the whole self custody, being able to purchase
On
that product?
So we've done Bitcoin selling for Interactive transfer, and you can pay your bills in Interact or with Bitcoin on our website for a
Yeah, I
couple of
saw
years.
that.
But the
Yeah,
Interact transfer, like being able to buy with Interact transfer, launched a couple weeks ago. I think
Oh
like
wow.
either late May or early June. So you can buy with Visa debit or Interac e-transfer at through that bitcoinwell.com.
Amazing.
And
Yeah, that's something that I've always been like, very skeptical of. We've heard so many of these exchanges. Like, was Quadriga around when you first got into Bitcoin?
well, they came around after I got into Bitcoin,
After?
but yeah, man, like
Yeah, we all know that story and like countless others. And,
dude, look
so
at
I've
right now.
always,
Like 2022 is a giant ad for non-custodial Bitcoin companies. Like it
yeah,
is shocking how many people are exposed unknowingly to the malice or incompetence of custodial Bitcoin companies, and
yeah.
that's terrifying, man.
It is, yeah. That's definitely a big education piece that I feel a lot of just regular people interested buying Bitcoin that need to really be aware of on how to properly buy and store and hold your
Yeah,
Bitcoin.
I think too. It like people people for some reason are brainwashed into thinking that they can't hold their Bitcoin. Like,
Yeah,
why would I want to hold it myself? That seems scary. And like, you know, saying that for anything else just doesn't make sense. Like, you know, where do you want your car to live? At your house or at the mechanic's house? Where do you want your children to
yeah,
live? At your house or at daycare? Like
yeah.
you when you talk about custody of anything, people are like adamant. No, no, no. I am in control, and that's when it's best. But then with money,
Sure.
where we've all been brainwashed by the fiat system to believe that like, oh, someone else better do this for me because
That's
it's
true.
it's it's safer that way, and
It's interesting, yeah.
it doesn't make sense.
It's very interesting how you describe that. And on top of that, I think Bitcoin, it again, I'm talking from the lens of just the average person who just,
Mhm.
doesn't maybe know Bitcoin in this crypto space as in depth as you or I might, or you know way more than I do, of course. But for people like that, just add the layer of just like complexity around Bitcoin and what it is. And I feel a lot of people get into it just because like they see something there, but don't really know too many details about it. But yeah, I think that's a huge opportunity to just educate a lot of people. And so that's awesome. I love how you do that. So let's say, so if I have my own, like, self custody wallet, like the e-transfer gets sent directly to my wallet. Is that how it
Yeah,
works?
so like the workflow is very much like you pick the amount of Bitcoin you want to buy. So you want to buy $50, you want to buy $100, $500, whatever. You then input your Bitcoin address before you even think about sending us money. You send us or you tell us where you want the money, where you want the Bitcoin to go.
I
Then we
see.
give you your e-transfer instructions to send money to our email address, your security question, and your security answer. But and the best part about it, and I think this is the cool innovation that you can do with self custodied and non custodial products is the second time you use it, you don't actually have to open the Bitcoin Well app. You can
Hmm.
just go to your bank, send an e-transfer with those same details, and you'll see Bitcoin in your wallet in like 2 minutes. Like before you
That's
get the
awesome.
message that your e-transfer has been accepted, you'll see Bitcoin on chain. And it's honestly the fastest way to buy Bitcoin, and just by nature of it being self custodied, it is the safest way to buy Bitcoin. So I'm super proud of the team and what
Yeah.
we've been able to build and innovate.
That's amazing. I didn't even know that, and you'll see me as a new customer of Bitcoin Well
I
very
like that.
soon after this,
I
for
like
sure.
that.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's been a really fun journey. Like, well, it's like anything, right? Like we're building something that doesn't really exist right now, and so it's harder. But what comes of it is like greater innovation, right? And
Yeah,
um, we truly are future proofing money, and that's our mission. Like our value statement is that we want to future proof money. That's our guarantee to our customers
yeah,
is that they'll be able to interact with Bitcoin however they choose to. And that's what I've been passionate about. Like I've been in this space for nearly a decade. Um, I see how important it is for people to be able to access Bitcoin. When we started, it was all about Bitcoin accessibility, and now it's all about Bitcoin interaction. Because accessibility is here. Like it is safe and easy to buy Bitcoin right now,
Yeah.
relatively speaking, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
But then what do you do with it, right? People only buy Bitcoin to sell it later, and that shouldn't be the case. You should buy Bitcoin to save it until you need it, and then when you
Yeah.
need it, you should have avenues to be able to use it to your advantage.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a lot I want to dive into. So you're in Edmonton, right? You're based
Yeah,
in Edmonton.
yeah,
Was your first ATM in Edmonton?
yeah. Downtown Edmonton at the Rose and Crown Pub.
Nice.
Which is yeah, it's a classic here downtown. And it was funny, man. I had like media crews out, and I found this like bed sheet that I covered the ATM with, and we did a big like pull the bed sheet off, and
Nice.
I had a bunch of paper wallets there. Like I printed off paper. So like if you go back into the CTV news archives, you'll see them like recording like the private key. Like the paper wallets are dead, obviously, but there's
Yeah.
like the private and public key right on the paper wallets right there.
Nice.
Yeah, back in the day,
That's
it was pretty fun. It was pretty cool.
awesome. Did you just start with the one ATM, or did you have a couple at the same
Yeah,
time?
just the one.
Just the one.
Man, and one was a stretch. Like I didn't like. It was very much. This is a bootstrapped organization, and we
Yeah.
definitely we grew as fast as we could with the funds that we had. So we started with one. A couple months later, we had a second one. I think maybe 4 months after that, we did a third one in Vancouver.
Wow.
And then kind of grew up focused mostly in BC and Alberta for growth. We were seeing better traction there,
Hmm.
and then kind of continued on that path.
Yeah. And you didn't mention, so Bitcoin Well is also the world's first publicly traded Bitcoin ATM company,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. We went down Bitcoin, and like obviously we're getting absolutely slaughtered in public markets right now. The price of Bitcoin declines, people see our stock and they sell our
Yeah.
stock. But going public was more than about the capital for us. It was about legitimacy.
Yeah.
People still, even now that we're public, um, don't see this industry and specifically the Bitcoin ATM industry as a legitimate business. And going public kind of forced people to do that, which was good.
Yeah.
Excuse
That's
me,
awesome.
and
How long have you
important.
been? Are you on listed on the TSX?
The venture, the TSXV, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And when did you officially go public?
Exactly 11 months ago. Uh,
Oh wow. Okay.
July July 30th, 2021, which
Oh
was,
nice.
and my birthday is on the 29th. So it was
Nice.
it was a big couple of days where I
Yeah.
had a
Awesome.
birthday, and then we went public the next day. It was a good week.
Congratulations, man. That's incredible. Before you went public, did you have investors come on, or were you just bootstrapped to public market, or how did that
Yeah, it
work?
was all bootstrapped. My
Wow.
father-in-law was the seed capital, so he was an early shareholder, and then it was just him and I, and
Wow. Good for you.
yeah, it was like super bootstrapped, and that's all that, like, you know good for me, and,
Yeah.
and and I'd love to say it was because of some great plan that I had, but really it was just the only option. There was no
Yeah.
investment money coming my way. Like
Amazing.
it didn't matter what we did, the profits, nothing mattered. Investors wanted nothing to do with Bitcoin until very, very recently, and so as a result, it was just it was just him and I.
That's great. That's amazing. So I've always thought of like Bitcoin ATMs, like something even I looked into at one point. It always just seemed like a very like just clean way to invest in like an actual, real, legitimate like business that's based around Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm very curious. Like when you first, what's the usage like in ATMs? Like on an average ATM, let's just say, like are most people buying? Are they selling? Or what does that
So
look like?
our network is mostly buying to the
Okay.
point actually. So we had the ability to sell on our machines about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and they
Oh,
accounted for less than 10% of our volume and more than 70% of our customer support calls. And so we actually took it offline, totally revamped the entire process. And what was happening was people would try to get $100 out of the machine. The machine would request, a very specific amount of Bitcoin. And the way that the machine was programmed, the way that the software worked, was the machine or the blockchain would then look for that exact amount of Bitcoin to that address. And if the user changed by one Satoshi, if they sent one Satoshi less or more, then the transaction wouldn't work, and they would be upset. They would be it would have a negative customer experience. So what we did was we actually took it offline. We spent the year, actually about a year and a half, rebuilding the ability to sell Bitcoin. And now what we do is we look for transactions. We then prorate the transaction, so the user still gets money, and we explain that whole process throughout the journey. So we're just rolling that out now. Actually, we're only testing it on one location in Edmonton. At the if you have any Edmonton listeners, it's at the Edmonton Airport Mall location. At entrance 6, I believe there's a machine there, and so you can go and sell Bitcoin. It works awesome. Like it's by far the fastest way to get cash for Bitcoin. Just again, like, we saw a big problem, saw that it wasn't a good user experience, and then had to like totally rethink how that was going to work, and then spend quite a significant amount of time like writing that software to work that way.
Yeah, makes sense. That's what I would assume too. So even today, the trend is the same. Like there's still a lot more people buying than selling in general.
I would say 80-20 at most. Like 80% of people buying, 20% of people selling.
Got it.
At most. Yeah.
But so and right now, it's just the one ATM where it's you can buy and sell.
But like even across like if you look online, people buying Bitcoin with Interac e-transfer or selling Bitcoin and receiving an Interac e-transfer, like it's heavily skewed towards buying.
Yeah, that's what I would guess too, for sure.
Yeah.
So coming into this business, I mean, obviously, it's a legitimate business, so a lot of regulations and like FinTrack here in Canada and like KYC and all that. How has that been with like the regulation side of things? Like, I feel like regulators look at a Bitcoin company and, almost feel threatened in a way.
Yep. Yeah, I think you'd be accurate in saying that. It was challenging. I think that like going public really highlighted how much education was still to happen in the regulation space. Like, we got delayed quite significantly because the regulators had to vet the business, and all of their questions, every single one of their questions, were surrounding custody of customer funds. And of course, we're non-custodial, so they couldn't comprehend that we didn't have customer funds. So they would ask like, where are customer funds held? And we would say nowhere, because we don't store customer funds. And they would say, well, how do you do business then? It's like, well, quite simply, we take their money and give them Bitcoin instantly. We don't take it and find an account and then let them buy Bitcoin later. And they were like, well, how does that even work? It's all digital. How could that be possible? And so we'd have to show them the protocol, show them how the ATM worked. And it was very much like us educating the regulators on what a non-custodial business actually looked like, because they just haven't seen it before. So that was challenging, but it does work out in our favor in the end, because regulators are like, they acknowledge that buying Bitcoin from a non-custodial operator is much less dangerous. And so regulators are much less involved in non-custodial businesses than in custodian businesses.
Yeah. Have you found like over time, the regulators in that side, have they sort of like eased up a bit, or just more comfortable with the concept, or it's still pretty
we definitely have a plan. Like, when I first started in 2014, I called FinTrack, or I have an email to FinTrack, and I said, like, I'm selling Bitcoin at ATMs. Surely you want me to do something, but I have not been told what to do yet. So please tell me what to do. And their first response back was, as far as we're concerned, Bitcoin is dust, and we don't regulate dust, so you're not regulated. And I was like, that's interesting. That's back in, I think that was January of 2014 or 2015 that I got that comment. So that was quite interesting. And then and then as we moved, but we always remained compliant. Like, I was it was pretty obvious what was coming. So I was always pretty aware
Yeah.
of what the regulations were for like adjacent industries. Like what does a gold broker do? What does a bank need to do? And so we kind of modeled our compliance policies similar to that. And then today, like Canada's done a pretty good job of regulations. They've done a pretty good job of like, hey, operators, here's the rule, here's how you can follow it, and off you go. And so
Yeah.
it's more relaxed by the virtue that there's less ambiguity, which is a benefit for everyone.
Yeah, makes sense. You mentioned, so you actually have a few retail, like I guess retail where people can like come in and like ask questions and stuff. That's pretty cool. How many locations do you have like that?
So we have two physical locations, one in Edmonton, one in
Two.
Calgary, and then we have a virtual
Okay,
option where people can like full on set up a consultation, talk to a Bitcoin specialist,
nice.
learn about Bitcoin,
That's
set up a
cool.
wallet, ask their questions, and like really give them that one-on-one white glove service experience, right? Education is so crucial in this space. And like,
Totally.
I mean, I me opening up Binance is scary, like just for me, and I'm like a seasoned vet.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
how does someone who wants to get into this space and learn about Bitcoin feel? So I would say that that's arguably one of our biggest differentiators is that people can like call and talk to someone,
Yeah.
which is more than you can say for a bank. Funny enough, so it is quite nice to see people leaving feeling empowered. They leave with their hardware wallet. They leave feeling like they know more about the money that they are storing and self custodying and very rarely does someone leave the office and feel like, oh, I'm never getting into Bitcoin or like,
Yeah.
none of my
That's
questions
amazing.
were answered, which is, yeah, it's great. I think it's great for the cause.
I love that. I tell people the same. Like I've been in the tech space now 10 plus years. And I remember when I had my hardware wallet, like I was kind of like nervous to plug it in because I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So you can only imagine someone that's, not too technical and wants to get into it, how intimidating it might be.
Totally, man.
What's like what oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's like unplugging a hardware wallet has got to be one of the most like intimidating things that a human can do.
It
It's
is.
like,
Totally.
okay, is this thing gonna explode when I unplug it, or are all the coins still gonna be
Yeah,
on there?
for sure. What's I'm curious, like what's like the traffic, walk-in traffic of just people randomly coming in? Like, do you have employees stationed there like full time, or
Yeah. Oh yeah.
is it
Yeah. It's full time.
yeah,
Less. It's less at $25,000 Bitcoin than it is at $80,000 Bitcoin. Um,
yeah,
but it's like daily. Like people are in the office every single day learning about Bitcoin,
love
which
it.
is great. We run a monthly Bitcoin for beginners class, which is done virtually. Sorry, it's biweekly. It's every 2 weeks. There's a Bitcoin for beginners class, and we usually get like 50 to 60 people show up to those classes, where it's just a presentation. It's walking through Bitcoin, walking through nodes and miners and how the blockchain works and why that's important, how it's decentralized, why decentralization matters. And then lastly, it's about storage of Bitcoin and why you want to store
Yeah.
Bitcoin on your own keys and not in someone else's key.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, those are good classes.
Yeah, awesome. What's the sticking on this subject? What's the like a long term, like maybe year, 2 year out plan for Bitcoin? Well, do you want to expand like those locations like out east more or in
So
the U.S.?
we're definitely want to get more education focused. I think that education is a big piece of our brand and a big piece of our service offering. We built the Bitcoin Academy in partnership with a local university here in Alberta. And you can go to if you go to bitcoinwell.com/learn, you can sign up for the Bitcoin Academy. It's a free university course that we
Nice.
developed. I walk through 6 modules of like Bitcoin. So education is a big piece for us, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The plan
Yeah.
to expand in-person offices is is difficult because it's like chicken or egg style, right? Do you need an office people come in, or do you have an office then people choose to come in? And finding that balance of making sure that we're responsible, that we're being fiscally responsible with our shareholders' money, while still, pursuing the cause, is kind of that middle ground. So definitely plans
Mm.
to expand, not in the near, like the short term, but we do have a strategy in place to kind of expand that. We're just testing out right now our Bitcoin Nomad program, which is individuals who effectively operate kind of in like a similar way to like what a benefits provider, like a life insurance kind of
Mhm.
group would, where they back us and they use our brand, they use the benefits that come with our brand, they use our educational resources and all those benefits, and then they go out and sell Bitcoin, and we facilitate all the compliance burden, the FinTrack burden,
Mm.
and kind of, and obviously fulfilling the transaction. Like if you want to sell Bitcoin to your buddy, it's like whatever, you got a couple $100, like you go do that. But if someone wants to buy $3 million worth of Bitcoin, like what are you going to do, right? And so we
Yeah.
give those people, our Bitcoin nomads, we give them an outlet to actually go and sell Bitcoin in that way. So that's been fun, and we just expanded and started that this like in Q2. So it's kind of a new advancement. So that's how we'll be expanding those in-person services for now. But then the plan, like the long-term plan, is focused around like interaction is the core, right? How do
Yeah.
you interact with Bitcoin? And if you look at like how do you interact with your money? Well, you earn money, you spend money, you send money to your friends, you invest your money, you save your money. You want to trade it into other currencies. You want to get cash. You want to use it at the coffee shop, and all these different ways that you interact with money. We're taking that same concept and building it into a Bitcoin standard, so that you can hold your wealth in Bitcoin. You can get paid in Bitcoin from your payroll, from your job. You can use your credit card and automatically pay that off with Bitcoin instead of with CAD. We want to encourage and enable people to be able to live on and live with Bitcoin in the safest and obviously the easiest way possible.
Yeah. I love that. So how do you deal with like being in Canada, the tax implications with Bitcoin? So they still viewed as like a commodity, right? So any transaction, it's considered capital gains or loss or whatnot. So like, how do you, like, that's what I would love to see as well. Like just going to the coffee shop, buy a coffee in Bitcoin or a meal or whatever. But technically in Canada, when you do that, like you have to now calculate like a gain or loss on
Yeah, disposition
your
of
Bitcoin.
asset. So
Yeah.
right, like in the early stages, that's tricky because you don't know what the price of Bitcoin you bought at. But when you use the ecosystem, like you know where you're buying Bitcoin at, and then you know what you're selling Bitcoin at. So it is quite an easy calculation when it's all done within the same ecosystem. But it
Yeah.
is a challenge. That's a burden for users that is a tricky one to facilitate. The
Yeah.
goal is for us to have a tax report, and it's simply like take all your Bitcoin purchases, all your Bitcoin sales, bunch them together, apply the FIFO method, out it goes. Um, but obviously, our users have only been using the product for a couple of weeks, so that won't be possible for like the short term. But that's kind of the end goal and how we'll eventually solve that problem.
Or even better, tax regulations change and they start treating Bitcoin a little
Yeah,
different.
I mean, like money. Yeah, man, that would be like so good.
Yeah.
I don't know if tax regulations ever get better for consumers. And I think that
Yeah.
soon Bitcoin will be looked at as like, oh, if you have Bitcoin, you're rich. So we must tax you. And I don't think that taxes will ever get better on Bitcoin in
Yeah.
Canada,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. So, any thoughts on? There's been a lot of talks worldwide, including Canada, about CBDC, central bank digital currencies. So, it's kind of the writings on the wall. I think that's where it's heading. Very, I don't know how soon, but clearly that's what governments are pushing towards. Like, does that concern you with like the Bitcoin ATM business? Like, do you see that as a risk potentially, or
No,
how are
not
you
for
seeing
ATMs.
that?
I see it as a risk to freedom. I think
Well,
CBDCs
yeah,
is the biggest and most threatening step towards communism that our country has ever seen. And the second a CBDC is implemented, that'll be the death of freedom. That is the first
agreed.
biggest blow and crack to any level of freedom that our society has. will be evaporated with a CBDC. So is it a threat to Bitcoin ATMs? No. Frankly, Bitcoin ATMs get a lot more valuable because you can buy Bitcoin instantly with cash. That's going to be very, very valuable in a CBDC world. And people should and will be fleeing the Canadian dollar or whatever the CBDC equivalent is into Bitcoin. So I do not
Yeah.
think that those are a threat to the business. In fact, I think they like help the business, but I do not want that to happen because
No.
just for the sake of my own family, for the sake of my friends, for the sake of my parents, like, man, a world where the money is fully owned and controlled by the state, and then the use of that money is fully owned. Like, we're already so close to there. We're already so bad here in this country. And a CBDC would just introduces social credit score and so many anti-freedom opportunities for the government that would be catastrophic.
Yeah, that's a very frightening rabbit hole to even think about what the consequences could be for that.
Yeah, and the
Um,
consequences are so great. Like, I mean, Black Mirror, like, just look at what they go through a CBDC or a similar CBDC kind of idea, and it would be oh man, it would be catastrophic. It would like,
you
if the government already tells us what we can and cannot spend our money on, right? They tell us what we can and cannot do in our homes to a certain extent, and I think that for the most part we found a way to navigate that within the bounds and within the confines of our government. But if they start telling us, you can't eat certain foods on certain days, you can't get gas because you didn't do this thing that we needed you to do,
yeah,
and that's what a CBDC does. That's what has the ability to do. It like, the banks are not doing anyone any favors by any stretch of the imagination, but at least they're a private business that is in between the government and its citizens. A CBDC would eliminate that private business between government and citizen and give government full control. And we've like,
yeah,
obviously the banks crater to government, right? Look at no further than the truck thing, like
yeah,
a few months ago, and the banks catered to that. The banks froze those
hmm
accounts. 2,000
yeah,
bank accounts were frozen illegally. But like, imagine if the government could snap their finger and do that to anyone that they disagreed with.
yeah. The
Um,
precedent has been set, so
and
it's
that,
not.
man, if you do something the government disagrees with, even if it's legal,
Mhm.
we will take this action, which is terrifying.
Yeah, concerning for sure. Um, so, do you see like you're seeing China banning Bitcoin, making transacting in Bitcoin illegal, and like I think India as well. Like, how do you see that like on just like a macro level, and how that could impact Bitcoin? Like, do you think governments like on a global scale coming together can ever like totally shut down Bitcoin?
No. Um, do you know how many times China has banned Bitcoin?
I
13.
feel like I see a new headline
Thir-
every.
13 times China.
Yeah,
How many times has heroin been banned, do you think? Like, it's one time, because when you ban something that can actually be like banned, it happens once. But when there's like every 6 months there's a new headline that China is banning Bitcoin, it's like it just highlights how unbannable Bitcoin is.
yeah, that's
Um,
true.
and I think too that, like, if I me as a Bitcoin entrepreneur, and being a Bitcoin entrepreneur for the last decade, I'm constantly evaluating where's the best place for my business to be. And like, Canada is like, you know, it's is it looking like the best choice for the long
Yeah,
term? Probably not. But do you know what's definitely not is China, right? Definitely not is India, is Europe. Like the Bitcoiners will go to wherever they need to be to thrive in this new environment. And so if you're in China and you care deeply about Bitcoin, you probably aren't going to live in China for very long. Just like if you're in China and you care deeply about privacy, you probably aren't going to live in China very long. If
yeah,
you're in, like, If you're in BC and you care deeply about oil, you're probably going to move to Alberta because that's where the oil industry is going to thrive. And I feel like we as individuals need to take control, need to be sovereign enough to take control of like, what do we care about, and then flock to societies that enable us to be passionate about those things. And so like it means that China will fall, right? Unless China is playing the long game and they're just buying as much Bitcoin as humanly possible, which would be a good move if you're into owning the world, which I think China is into that. But I don't think it's like a threat to Bitcoin anyway. In fact, it makes me want to need more Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that. So where do you see like a lot of like the Bitcoin community flocking to, like Central America, like El Salvador,
Yeah, it's
places like
Central
that?
America. El Salvador is an interesting experiment. I think like the Bahamas, like it's places that are second world, third world in some cases.
Yeah.
Places where the government is not punitively taxing those that are smart enough to get into Bitcoin, and it's places that are not like what Europe is doing um, with custodied wallets is appalling. Effectively making it illegal to have a non-custodial service in Europe. Um, it is just appalling, and I think that we should be very, very aware of what's happening around the world. And like the first world countries are built on government control and then letting the citizens do what the government thinks is good enough. Second and third world countries have a lot more control over their citizens, and they are now seeing opportunities to like, hey, if we give certain industries a head start in this country, we can be prosperous in the future. And this idea of control, like you think about how quickly the government lost control of communication, right? With the advent of the internet. Like every single piece of long distance communication went through the government 50 years ago. Every single letter, every single piece of communication, long distance, was done through the government. And then the internet came in and they lost that control. Now there's end to end encryption. It's like, good luck. And that same shift is happening rapidly with money, but they're obviously like worried about that, and I think that their response to it, rather than like we should adopt a new way to thrive, what they're doing is they're trying to grasp on to the little amount of control that they still have, and they're going to shoot themselves in the foot by doing that.
Well, in Canada, they're trying to take that back. Bill C-11 with this new.
Yeah, like
So
the like mandating how much Canadian content has to be like moved through.
yeah, essentially, like it's an amendment to it's expanding the CRTC's role now into the internet, which essentially polices, what people can post and consume, which
All it
is
does is hurt users. All it does is hurt the end user, right? That's all any regulation does is hurt the end user. They have the illusion of protection, but on the grand scale, all regulation does is hurt the end user, whether it be through a less good product or less innovation of that product. And yeah, man, we're seeing it. We're seeing it happen in droves right now,
yeah,
of governments grasping on to whatever control they might think they
yeah.
have and doubling down on, you know, govern these people harder. Like, oh, these people don't want to be governed. They're unhappy. What should we do? Govern them harder. It's like the opposite response would be the most appropriate.
It's so true. Um, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on like just today's economy and what's going on. Like at least to me and a lot of others I speak to, this feels like a much different downturn, recession, call it, than in 2008 or previous ones, for many different reasons. But how are you feeling about just the overall economy right now, and how you see and how you know how does Bitcoin well assess the next 12 to 24 months, call it, and just overall the economy right now?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually writing a blog post about this. Like we're seeing a pretty radical shift in the public markets anyways. And when money was cheap, people wanted growth at all cost. It was like, here's a bunch of free money, go grow as fast as possible. And what we resulted in was a very few amount of, or a lot of companies doing weird things unsustainably. And now we're undergoing this like massive shift. And that's been for like a decade that's been happening. And now this shift is going to force organizations to shift that mindset from grow at all costs to be sustainable and then grow within that sustainability. So we're likely going to see stronger companies, but fewer companies as a result of that. As far as the money goes and as far as the economy goes, like we're in for pain. Like there's no way to sugarcoat that. When you act irresponsibly with money for decades, um, there's two ways out: death or pain. And pain is better than death. So the lesser of two evils is going to be some economic pain. This does feel different than 2008. Um, Maybe it's because I'm older. I was like 15 in 2008, so didn't really pay
Yeah.
too much attention to. Well, I paid
Yeah,
attention,
true.
but I wasn't on like I wasn't
Yeah,
reading all the articles and wasn't like researching the policies. Um,
yeah,
but I do think that right now are going to start like we're going to start seeing more problems in like in manufacturing, more problems with like variable prices. Like people's knock on Bitcoin is it's volatile, but like our world is volatile, man. Like go buy
hmm,
an apple every week for the next 4 months and tell me if you ever pay the same price. Like
true.
period.
Yeah,
Go get 10 liters of gas every week for the next month or for the next 5 months and tell me like what is the difference? Like it's
yeah,
crazy. We're going to continue seeing this volatility in our world, I think, and we're going to need to embrace it. And I think we're in for one more bailout. Um, but if you notice, like death spirals come fast and bigger every cycle, and like the first death spiral was like in the 30s. And then we got all the way to the 70s before we needed like another big bailout. And then it was like 2001, but that was because of terrorists. So that's fine. And then it was 2008, but the banks got bailed out. And so that was fine. Now it's 2022. Like this is our third one in 2 decades. Like, woof.
yeah.
How many more death spirals can we withstand here? And I just I wonder when the last one will be.
Yeah, I think for me it feels different. Like I think we're swimming through like uncharted waters, like unprecedented times in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
With just with everything that's happening, I think we could be possibly living through like an economic shift, and like in the global reserve currency, like we could see potentially a collapse of the USD, not really hold its dominance globally. Like demand for USD, we can already see is decreasing, has been decreasing for quite some time. That's just accelerating now. So, my thinking is like and you can study history. Like fiat currencies have never sustained. They all, there's always shifts in economic powers, and maybe we're living through one right now potentially. So my thoughts is, what happens to assets, and like what assets should you hold? And to me, that's why I'm so gravitated towards Bitcoin, because I can't think of a better solution right now than Bitcoin.
No, like Bitcoin in and of itself is not useful, um, except for the fact that it represents all useful things. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
if I was having this conversation with a buddy last night, like if what do you need to live? Like, let's go back to basics. You need shelter, you need food, you need water, right? Basics. Um,
Yeah.
if you are not working in a shelter, food, or water industry, then like you need a way to create value and then buy shelter, food, or water because you can't produce it yourself. And so, how are you going to do that? Well, if you are a podcaster and you can sell somebody airtime to to advertise their green juice or whatever, then you better hope that green juice company can buy you a house or can buy you a dinner at the end of the thing. But like if they don't, green juice maybe like a good example because you could like drink the green juice, but if you wanted a steak, then like they would need to give you some medium of exchange to then go to the steak company to buy steak or
Yeah.
to the butcher and buy steak. And so when you think about, well, what is a representation of those valuable things? And then like in history, it's been like fiat, like grab a gold coin, grab a piece of paper that represents a gold coin, grab a piece of paper that represents nothing, and that's fine. But then what you run into is like you get paid on Thursday, you want to eat on Friday, but the money you got on Thursday is not worth as much as it is on Friday. So now we're getting into some problems, and what we need is back to that hard, sound, sovereign money kind of economy, which is what's going to be, which is the Bitcoin standard. And you get paid in Bitcoin. You then are secure that your wealth, your value that you've created with your talents, with your time, are going to maintain its value. So you can go to the steak shop and buy steak in 3 days, in 5 days. Like back in like it was like the 13 or the 1400s, when people would go out to the bars on Friday night, they would order all of their drinks at the beginning of the night because they were less expensive because the money would just get so much worth so much less as the night progressed.
That's crazy.
Like that's like an extreme case of
Yeah.
hyperinflation, but like, are we that far away from that right now? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's that's why I'm saying it's I think everyone's just trying to figure this out, and that's my hope with this podcast right now is like speak to people like yourself, sort of aligned with the thinking, and just trying to figure this whole thing out and assess where things are going.
Yeah, man.
Um, yeah,
I think like, yeah, what assets are going to be valuable? And the answer is like anything that can produce value or anything that can represent something that produces value. And frankly, that's like land, Bitcoin, and animals. I think as far as I'm
yeah.
concerned, that's pretty
What
much
about
what you
real
want to.
estate? Would you put real estate in there or just
Real
land?
estate's a tricky one, and so is land because like who owns it? Like you own your house, but you got to pay taxes on it, and who tells you what the tax bill is? Not
Yeah,
you. So if you own your house and then you got a $50,000 tax bill coming at you, and last year it was 10, like is that a good asset? And
that's
then what
true.
happens? The government says, "Oh, don't worry, we'll buy that from you and alleviate your property tax bill." Or the government comes with a letter and just says, "Hey, by the way, tomorrow morning there's a bulldozer coming here. You better get out of the house." Like
Yeah.
we've seen government steal land before. We will probably see government steal land again.
That's true. That's true. The whole like debt relief concept, I can totally see coming into play. It's like, yeah, we'll take care of your property tax bill, but sign up for this CBDC here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or worse, if you don't give us your house, your money won't work.
Yeah,
Here's a
great.
bank with all the CBDC in it that you could ever want. Here's your wallet. Off you go. But you got to give us your house. And by the way, your other wallet is not going to work until you do.
Do you see Bitcoin like sort of not being as so volatile, just really like stabilizing? If so, when? How?
Hmm, I don't know. I don't know that we've ever had anything stable in our world ever. Um, like one Bitcoin has always been one Bitcoin, which is not what you could say about the dollar. 1 liter of gas is always 1 liter of gas, but you can go a lot further with 1 liter of gas right now. So in argument, gas is getting less valuable, right? It's costing more money, but it's getting less valuable because like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I can drive 1,000, what do I get? 17 liters per kilometer in my truck.
Yeah.
And so what? Back in the day, they got like 30 liters per 100 kilometers. And then, I have an electric vehicle as well. So I can I think I don't know what the exact conversion is because I'm tracking electricity, but like gas turns into electricity. So, but it's a lot more efficient that way, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I can use whatever 10 liters of electricity and charge my car to go 500 kilometers. So like you could argue that gas is volatile from both a usage perspective and cost perspective. What about food? Like fertilizer is costing 300% more this year than last year. Property
Yeah.
tax is up 40% this year from last year. So what is that going to do to our food? It'll make it volatile. So it's like
Yeah,
this
that's
illusion that
yeah,
money is stable is just that. It's an illusion.
fair point. How do you see gold fitting into this? Like, do you own any gold? Like, are you sort of bullish on it? I mean, historically, it's been around, it still is, and
I just don't know what the use is for gold. Like the argument behind gold is one of two things. It's like uh, it has value and therefore it makes good money, but that's like not super true because like what is we actually like our team was talking about this last week. Like what is the actual value prop for gold? Like it's used in a lot of things, but how much gold is in like an iPhone, an iPad? And like what is the actual like what's the total supply of gold, the total usage of gold? And there's a calculation that can be done to give us like the actual cost per ounce of gold based on the value that it creates. If you want to look at what's valuable, like oil is much more valuable than gold, obviously. Um, it does a less it does so it doesn't have an extraordinary like it's more useful than Bitcoin. Gold is for sure. Less useful than oil, more scarce than oil. So there's a calculation that we could probably do. And then the like it's not good money because we don't know how scarce it is. You can't divide it very easily. You can't validate it very easily. You can't transfer it very easily. So it like doesn't do a very good job of being money, which means by default you have to trust someone. It's very difficult to have a fully self-custodied, financially sovereign individual with just gold in your pocket. Um, I had a guy on. I do this talk show like once a month or so with this radio in BC, and this guy was like, "If I had a gold coin in my pocket, I could do a lot more with it than Bitcoin." It's like, well, no, because you'd need your like scale, you'd need your validity, like gold authenticating machine, whatever the magnet thing or whatever the electrode thing was.
yeah,
You need a knife to like carve out your
yeah,
shillings, and then you need to hope that the other person trusts all of your equipment. So
yeah,
like how useful is that? Where I can like you send me Bitcoin right now, I can verify that it's real Bitcoin and exactly how much I got in like a millisecond. So like gold was a useful tool because of certain properties, but I feel like Bitcoin doesn't need to have tangible use because it does such a good job of being sound money. Gold doesn't do a great job of being sound money, so it falls back on its tangible use. But I like gold will probably be fine. But I think that like principally speaking, Bitcoin is a better store of value and a better money case than gold.
yeah. I have similar like thoughts and questions surrounding gold as well. I think that the bulk of it is really just being just the societal acceptance over hundreds of years that gold has
Yep.
just been known to be this metal that holds value, and like you should possess it as an asset to preserve your wealth. But I feel over the long term, you can sort of see like the younger generation coming up, like metaverse, like their world is online, and like really valuing digital assets like NFTs, whether, what your thought on NFTs is whatever, but like a lot of people are valuing these digital assets. So I know, seeing that this is the world where it's heading, like the younger kids, like living their identities on in the metaverse, and like, potentially like an avatar is like who you're perceived to be in real life. It like, where's like, I don't see a place for gold for like this new upcoming generation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting to see how the next generation interacts with gold will be very telling to its future. But again, like, is it money or is it useful? And the best money isn't useful, and the best things to use aren't money. So gold is like
Yeah.
gold was a good middle ground for both those things, but I think that we've advanced and evolved as a society now that we don't actually need those things.
What about like stable coins backed by gold?
Why? Like, what do you want that for? Like, do you want to trust someone else to hold the gold, trust that the gold is there so they can give you an IOU backed by that gold? Like, haven't we done that in 1930 and it like didn't work
That's
that great?
true. Been there, done
Um,
that. Yeah.
like, what's the point? Like, they're stable. They're as stable as the gold reserve, which, like, gold is not stable. Like, gold's volatile. Um, but then you eliminate, it's like you've eliminated all the use from owning gold. You've added better properties of money. But if you just want money, then just buy Bitcoin. Like,
I guess, yeah, you're right. I guess it's a definition of crazy. It's like at the end of the day, you're still trusting a third party to make sure they have the gold. You can,
yeah, like, are they
cash
doing
in
gold
your.
reserves? Are you like watching
Yeah,
them? Like, how are they copper? Are they gold plated copper bars? If you have
yeah,
3 tons of gold, what if there's a fire? Like, are you insuring it? Is that a cost? Like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Just buy Bitcoin.
totally. Yeah, yeah, crazy. So what's next for Bitcoin? Well, what's next?
So you're going to continue to see us improve, I think, the online product. Um, we're working hard on usability. So easy ways to like you can pay your credit card bill in like 3 minutes right now with us, which is good. It's pretty fast, but like you should be able to do more with that. Peer-to-peer transfers are going to be important. But I think the most important piece that we're going to come out with in the next like 12, 24 months is going to be the ability to spend Bitcoin virtually anywhere without the merchant needing to accept Bitcoin. Like right now, there's like you can spend Bitcoin, but it's like sell your Bitcoin, preload a fiat card, and then go spend the fiat. I want to be
Yeah,
able to to spend Bitcoin instantly through something of a tap card method, and that's kind of
nice,
that's our next
nice.
product. And then in the short term, obviously, we'll be like we're looking forward to, I think, figuring out how to reward early customers and how to reward early users, um, whether that be through like a membership program, whether it be through like our product is already incredibly cheap to use, but figuring out a way to make it like free, or at least included, like taking the Costco business model of like Costco doesn't make any money on their products, they make it all in their memberships, and that's the way that we want to go. Like our product
Yeah,
should look and feel like a bank account that gives you full control, where you pay $10 a month or $15 a month or whatever the end up the membership. Maybe you pay, you know, 100,000 sats a month or something like that,
hmm,
and you get unlimited access to all of our products, right there. And that's kind of what we're working on, building a product towards. So you need a good product first. We have a good product, but
Yeah.
it's like a single product. We gotta integrate and interact more with that product.
I love it. I love it. I should have asked this earlier, but are you a developer or like what's
No, I'm horribly uneducated and like
okay?
I'm the stupidest guy in this building, man. I just have the crazy ideas, and then
Nice.
we get the people. The
Love it.
team does a really good job of like interpreting those crazy ideas. They turn it from Adam speak into like English, and then
Nice. Nice.
they roll through it. But no, I'm like I'm like high school
Got it.
educated
Yeah.
and found Bitcoin and fell in love.
How big is your team right now?
We're at right, we have 30 people or so right
Is
now.
everyone based in Canada or like
Edmonton.
global?
We've got
Everyone's in.
three team members in Calgary, one in Kelowna, but everyone else is Edmonton.
Nice, nice, awesome. And I guess you're public. Do you just like revenue numbers? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
all?
So we did last year. We did $99.6 million. So I was a little just shy of
Just
100 million.
shy.
So definitely striving for that 100 mark this year.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, so we've been growing like at quite a good clip. Like 2 years ago we were at 42 million. Last year we did 99. So we've seen quite good growth.
Wow.
Um,
Nice.
we'll hopefully continue to see that good growth. And like our online product, like it's early days. Like the actual product in itself. The e-transfer just went live a few weeks ago. We had Visa debit for a few months before that, and we're growing at like 300% a month right now, which has been awesome.
Wow.
Um, so it's early days, but definitely encourage, like, go to bitcoinwell.com. Oh, sorry.
All good.
Figure out how to go to bitcoinwell.com, make an account, and kind of like, buy Bitcoin in the fastest and safest way possible. Like it's literally minutes. Like it's so fast. Bitcoin on chain. We're big here about stacking Bitcoin on chain, which is, I think, the
Yeah,
most
I love
important
it.
and the safest way to buy
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Uh, Sorry, I'm just thinking like random business questions now. Do you see a lot of are acquisitions in your growth path as well? Because you see a lot of like other Bitcoin operators. Are you eyeing any of those
Yeah, we've done
or ATM operators? Sorry.
we've done 6 acquisitions
Oh,
in
really?
the
Okay.
past. Yeah.
Nice.
We will probably continue to do more. Um, it's tough to buy businesses in the upswing because everyone thinks their business is more valuable than it actually is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, like the most frustrating conversation is like, why would I sell for that price when I will just make that over the next 5 years? And it's like, well, you won't, because you'll have to invest.
Yeah.
Like
It's a lot of assumptions there.
there's a lot of assumptions in there. And like, 3-4 months ago, revenues probably look a lot different for those people than they do now.
So would now be a good time to swoop
Yeah.
in
So
and look at?
now's the time that we can like actually, they're actually
Yeah.
in a little bit here. Like we're having our acquisition strategy. Like we're setting the stage to go out and start hunting. Because
Nice.
now is the time where there's opportunities where people need to do down rounds. The investors have pulled out, etc.
Yeah. Another question I have now. Do you see a lot of growth coming from the actual like the volume of each ATM, or do you notice like those sort of just stabilize and sort of max
Yeah,
out?
like an ATM, once it kind of like after its kind of ramp up period, you kind of know what an ATM is going to be for its lifetime. And some locations are
Yeah.
better than others, obviously. But you kind of, once you do that ramp up period, that's you kind of know what an ATM is gonna look like for its lifetime.
What's the average like volume that an ATM does in like a
Dude, it's
standard
crazy.
location?
Some machines do like 4 or 5 grand a month, and some do 100. It's like,
Really?
yeah, it's totally hit or miss. We've
Guess it
had
depends on the location primarily.
totally. We had one machine one year do 500 grand in a month,
What? Where was
which
that
is
one?
crazy. Yeah, it was in Edmonton. In Edmonton,
In like a mall or
cafe, in
in a
a
cafe?
in a coffee shop. Yeah,
Wow, I would have never guessed that. That's crazy.
yeah. It's shocking, man. It's like you really, really, um, you really you try and like you find things that work and then double down. And like the cafe didn't work because it was a cafe. It worked because it was like had good hours, had good parking, was a safe location, people felt good
Yeah.
there. Like, you know, there's a bunch of
Mhm.
reasons. So you replicate that, right? It's not like
Yeah.
not all cafes are equal, right?
True. Yeah,
Um,
that's
and so you
true.
got to find what's working, why it's working,
Wow.
and then double down on that notion.
Are the margins better on ATMs or like the online?
Oh,
Uh,
ATM. ATM, it's
yeah.
quite a bit more expensive to buy Bitcoin from an ATM.
Yeah.
There's definitely a convenience fee associated with it, and it's because there's different protocols for the ATM versus online, right? Online, there's a huge fraud risk, and so there's like lower transaction volumes, and it's like full. Like we gotta obviously like verify every ounce of where the money's coming from a fraud perspective, right?
Yeah.
At the ATM, like you're putting cash into the machine, and we've got certain compliance regulations that we have to follow. But it's like it's a lot more tiered and a lot more scaled.
Yeah.
Like the workflow can be a lot different than online, just because of the nature of where the money, not where the money originated, but like how the money is being transferred to us. Cash in the
Yeah.
machine is a lot less risky, and so it's just it's a different product and a different experience.
Got it. Got it. Awesome. Adam, I want to thank you again for the time, man. I know we're talking over an hour now, so I really appreciate it. This was really fun. I hope we can do it again, and I hope, more importantly, hope people listening just got something out of this, and maybe pique their interest to start doing their own research. Go on bitcoinwell.com. A lot of amazing resources and education, which I'll also be checking out as well. So appreciate the time. Love what you're doing and continued success.
Thanks, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks so much. Definitely let me know if you have any questions or feedback. And everyone, hit me on Twitter at Adam OBrien _. Any questions, feedback? We're open book, and we want to make sure that we're building a product that make people feel safe buying Bitcoin. So we want to hear from the
Amazing.
users.
Amazing. Amazing. I love it. Thanks so much, Adam. Really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Talk to you
Costa. Take care,
soon.
man. See ya.